All right, Bob, we are live. I have made you the host.
Yep.
I'm your
Thank you.
co-host.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm Bob Cohen, your host for organizing files on your PC. We'll wait for a minute or two to get people entered into the meeting, and then we'll get started with learning about how to get organized. Okay. We have Joe from Get Set Up is with us as our teaching assistant today. He'll be able to help with any technical issues that you might have during the meeting or while we're getting set up. He'll post a link, to get help at getsetup.io in chat so that you can request a recording. And got some new faces I haven't seen before. So welcome to one of my classes here. Great, great.
Thank you, Bob.
Who's a compulsive organizer? Anybody? Just love to organize everything, and who's always disorganized, right? Maybe we have more people that are always okay. All right, okay. Okay, good. At least we have an honest group today. Okay, because nobody's ever as organized as they would like to be. But we'll talk about some things. As we do more on our computers, more of our daily life becomes digital, and so we really have to count on finding things and making sure they're available to us when we start doing these things. So we're going to talk about some concepts about organizing and things you may not know, because there's actually an application on both Windows 10 PCs and on Mac PCs that is there to help you organize and find files. You just may not be familiar with how to use it. And so we'll talk about Windows a little bit, Macs. We'll talk about things that just will apply to everything, and hopefully get you some tips on how to organize. I'm going to go through a few introductory slides while we're waiting for people to come in. Welcome to Organizing Files on Your PC. I'm Bob Cohen. I've been teaching classes on Get Set Up since January. I do mostly technology classes because I worked in the tech industry my whole career. I've owned my own internet service company and I own my own training company. I've done training for adults since about 2007 through community colleges. And I really like making technology simpler to understand. I use a lot of analogies that people might find helpful in the world of non-technical things that are maybe there that can maybe help out as well. So we'll talk about Get Set Up. We are live streaming, so that for those of you that are joining by live streaming, we encourage you to come and join us at getsetup.io. It's free, it doesn't cost anything, and we're not paid to promote any products. It does, make it a little bit easier for us if we can see you on camera, so that we can see if you have any questions or other things. It's not a requirement, just makes it easier. And you can request a recording after class at help@getsetup.io. Okay, so there's ways you can get onto Get Set Up that way. Okay, so what's our agenda today? And then I'm going to pause and kind of ask a few questions, get a little, questions from people, see what kind of issues people are struggling with. So what we're going to look at today are some tips for understanding files, folders, and drives. And what are these things called files? And I'll give you some tips for ways you can make your files easier to find. And then I'm going to talk about and then show you some searching and sorting tools on both Windows and Macs. Okay, so I want to make sure I leave enough time in there to show people on Macs that we can do it too. And I just want to get an idea of how many people here today have a Mac computer. Anybody have a Mac? Okay, Irene. Anybody else? If you want to raise your hand, Sandy, you have a Mac?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so we have a couple people with Macs, and what you may not realize is that when it comes to files, computers and devices and smartphones all work similarly, but both Macs and Windows work pretty similarly when it comes to files and managing files. I have to apologize. My lawn service just showed up, so I'm trying to make sure that you don't hear any lawnmower noise outside. But if you do, I apologize for that. Hopefully,
That's
the
okay.
microphone usually doesn't pick it up, so we should be able to be just fine. But if you do hear any, let me know, because I can't tell what you hear. I can only tell what I hear. I have a little bit of a hearing impairment, and sometimes I might ask you to repeat a question, and it's nothing, personal. Just because I've been wearing hearing aids for about 8 years, and sometimes I don't hear as well as I used to. But even with the hearing aids, sometimes things are challenging to listen to. But some things are really easy to listen to. It's kind of surprising. Okay, so we've got a few Mac users, we've got some Windows users, and we've got some people who think you really have a handle on organizing your files on your computer, or you're here because this is just how do I get organized in the first place, right? Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Now, I've been using technology a long time, so I apologize upfront for everybody in the technology industry that makes technology really hard for people. Okay, so I apologize as a global apologies. We're going to try and make technology a little easier for everybody, and make it simpler. Okay, so we're going to start off with some basics, and some of you may know some of these things already. But bear with us. We're going to get a little. We're going to build on each of these ideas to help understand files and folders, okay, and disk drives. Both Windows PCs and Macs use disks. This thing called disks and drives. Okay, they're physical boxes. They're things that actually are inside your computer, and they're physical. That's where information is stored. So when you want to think of it like an electronic file cabinet, and it's big. They've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over time, so that they have more and more room to hold things. And what they hold is they can hold files, and files can be organized in folders. The folder can be empty or it can have files in it. So folders are just a way to help organize things, just like you might have a physical file cabinet in an office, and you might have folders. I don't know if you remember doctor's offices where they used to have all these rows and rows of files. Yvette's shaking her head up and down. You remember those? And they'd roll them all over and they'd find your name, right? And they'd pull out your file, right? It's all electronic now, but there are some advantages to having it electronic that you might not be aware of, but it's all electronic. So both Windows and Macs and even smartphones do have electronic storage on them, but they organize folders a little bit differently. So this is really focused on Windows 10 and Apple Macintosh desktops today, okay? Any questions about disk drives, folders, files? Okay, so we're going to build on this, okay? So
I'm really new to all this, so
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
I'm very new to all this, so this is like the difference between a file and a folder. I'm just learning right now.
Great, great.
And like when I download something, it's like I take hours trying to find it sometime.
Okay, okay, right.
Okay.
And that's a challenge. These are these are new concepts for a lot of people. So I want to make sure that we build on the basics as we start out. Okay. Windows computers, which is what I'm showing you on the right here, they use letters typically for a disk drive. Okay, so a disk drive on a Windows computer will typically have a letter C drive. Okay, that's the main drive. Sometimes you'll have a D drive. The A drive is still takes up a letter, but it's not installed on computers very much. It's the old 5¼ inch floppy drive. That used to be the only kind of disk drive that computers had, was 5¼ inch floppy drives. And the B drive was the letter that was assigned to the 3½ inch floppy drive. You remember those were all encased in plastic. But computers these days don't come with removable drives on them at all. They typically have connections, but they typically come with one disk drive. On Windows, it's called the C drive. On Macs, it's called the Macintosh hard drive, your primary drive. But you can have other drives as well connected to your computer if you own them and have them physically connected. Or you could even have something called a cloud drive. Now, I'm not going to try and answer all the questions about cloud today because we have some great classes on Google Drive, OneDrive, and iCloud that are really good for learning those things. But think of a cloud drive as just another disk drive, but instead of being physically in your computer, it's something you connect to over the internet. Okay, but it's a drive, just like any other drive. You can keep files in there, but it's out there. So you might see cloud drives that you see occasionally that show up in your list of drives. What are files? Okay, so files are data. They're pieces of information like a document, or maybe your tax preparer sent you an electronic, tax return this year instead of a paper one. Or it might be a photograph, or it might be a movie. Like if you ever stream Netflix or Amazon Prime, that's a video file that is being sent over the internet from Amazon or Netflix or Disney or whatever service to you. Those are files. They're actually electronic pieces of information. Audio files, you might, listen to Spotify or Pandora or iTunes, and then even application files like PowerPoint. So files are the data, okay? That's the actual piece of information. So you might have a document and say, let's call it, document 1.docx, okay? Or you might have another file called a picture.jpg, .mpg. You might have a movie .mp4. You might have a song .mp3. You might have a slide presentation .pptx. Well, what's going on here? Okay, these are names of files. So the names of the files is in front of this first dot right here. Every file has a dot in it, doesn't it? And what's in front of the dot to the left side is the name of the file. What's to the right side of the dot is the type of file. You like my really sophisticated drawing here. I'm getting better every time I do this, but I like drawing on slides. I don't know why, but okay. So every time you see a file, you'll see a file name and a dot and something to the right of the dot. What's to the right of the dot tells the computer, oh, that was a mistake I made. Let me change that to an E. Type, okay. What's to the right of the dot is the type of file that it is. So your computer has some applications on it that know how to open up a document, how to open up a picture, how to open up a movie, how to open up a music or audio file, and maybe even how to open up a PowerPoint file. So your computer looks at this information to the right of the dot to say, oh, this is text, or this is a document, or this is a picture. And that's how it figures out what it should use to open up the file. And that's how it plays a movie on your computer, or plays a song, or opens up a document, or even opens up a web page. Web pages are files that are called HTML. Okay, they're actually files on a computer. They're just out on the internet and they get pulled in, and your web browser is the application that opens up. So it's all just data. It's all, actually it gets down to being zeros and ones, but your computer and the software and the magic of technology makes things happen on your screen. Any questions about that? That's what a file is. Okay. So, Marcy, do you have a question? Okay.
No.
Okay. I just saw that whenever you don't have your microphone muted, and Zoom just kind of highlights if it picks up any sound. So don't worry about it. Okay. It's just one of those things that is unique to Zoom. Okay. So now we know what a file is. Well, where can you have files? Well, you can organize files and put them in folders, okay? So that every file on your computer is in a folder. And a folder is not really data. A folder is a container. You know, I don't know if you're familiar with like the Container Store, but if you go to Target or Walmart, they've got plastic bins of stuff for storing stuff. The bins are just empty. But if you put a label on a bin and you call it, you know, winter clothes, summer clothes, you know, beach clothes, you know, shoes, whatever, right? It's like the folder, but until you put stuff in it, like if you put in scarves in a bin for scarves, the scarves are the data, the bin is the folder, right? So the bin is just a holding for something. So, and you can have stuff scattered around. Like say you have your desk and you have a piece of paper on your desk, or you could have it in a folder, okay? Or so it can be loose on your drive, and you can have files that are loose in the disk drive somewhere, or files that are in folders. Okay, folders are an organizational tool to help you organize files. Okay, and it makes it easier for you to find them, because then you can say, hey, I want to find my pictures, or I want to find my documents. Your computer came with some folders already that were empty. Okay. Usually your computer comes with a folder for documents, a folder for photos, a folder for movies, and a folder for things you download from the internet. You may not know exactly where these are, but we're going to show you where they are, okay? And so you can use them or you can create folders. And you can actually create a folder within a folder. So if you have documents, you could create a documents folder and call it, say, 2021, okay? And have a folder inside of that. Keep anything you want to keep in 2021 there. So it's possible to create a folder inside a folder, and you can keep on going, folder, subfolder, 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 whatever you want to do. Folders are empty until you put things in them, though. Now, the name of a file, remember we talked about file names, and a file name can have a dot in it. And to the right is the type of file it is. That's going to be what application you created in. But to the left of the dot is the name. And your computer filing system has sorting tips. It can sort by numbers, letters, the type of file, the size of the file, and the date. Your computer automatically keeps track of when your file was added, created, and modified. And there are tools in the file organization features of your computer to help you really, really organize this stuff. So instead of having files just cluttered around like a collection of pottery, you can get them all sorted neatly in, by size, by color, by whatever it is. So you can use your computer to sort files inside folders, to make that happen. And if you start using good names for your files, it makes it easier for you to find them. Just like having a label on something. If you have a label on a bin and it says stuff, it's pretty hard to figure out what's in the bin. But if you put a label on the bin that says fabric or office supplies or extra sweaters or whatever, you start to know what's inside the bin, and you can make it a little easier to organize. And your computer will sort files for you automatically if you just know where to find the tools. You can also search for things on your computer. Both Windows and Macs have search tools. On Windows, there is a search box that's in the taskbar at the bottom of usually at the bottom of your screen, and you can search for a file by name if you want to. And Macs have a search tool as well. It's a little magnifying glass in the upper right. For some reason, Macs makes it really small. They don't put that search box in the taskbar. They make a little magnifying glass in the upper right. So if you look at your clock, next to your clock and other information on your Mac, you'll see a little magnifying glass, and that's the search tool to search for anything on your Mac. So you can search for things. Even if you don't know where you put them, you can search them. So if you got, where did I put my 2015 tax return? So if you named it 2015 tax return, you could just type in a search and your computer would find it for you. Computers are good at doing things like that.
Bob?
Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. Okay, now where it says type here to search, okay, instead of just typing in what you want, okay, there's a thing, there's a feature on there. It's called, okay, Cortana. Is that the same thing?
Or no, Cortana is usually Cortana is this little circle to the right of the search box,
Okay.
but sometimes it's built into search. Cortana is a way you can talk to your computer. Okay, and so if you activate Cortana or hit Cortana, you can actually talk to your computer and ask your computer to find something or to open an application or even search the web. Apple has something similar. It's called Siri,
Hmm.
and Google has a Google Assistant. So it's the that artificial intelligent assistant is what Cortana is.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Sometimes she'll find things for you, but it's kind of like when you get a dog. If you ever had a dog, you have a dog, Carol, ever? Or have you ever had a dog?
No, I have not.
Do you know people that have a dog?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so when I took my dog to obedience training, the instructor said, we're not here to train the dog, we're here to train the owner. Okay, so sometimes these voice assistants are really, really helpful, but it all depends on how well you know how to use them. Okay, and so they're a little tricky that way sometimes. So sometimes we have to learn a little bit about how to use them. So typing things in is a little bit better. And so sometimes you might click on that search and it might just pop up Cortana, but if you start typing letters, it'll start searching your computer for those things. We'll take a look on my computer, but I know people like to try things out as soon as they learn about them. So that's okay too.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Naming your files is probably the best advice I can give you today. You can use up to 256 characters to the left of that dot. The space to the left where you have the name. Okay, that name can be 256 characters long. So give it a name that has maybe a description of what's in the file, a project or task you're working on. So say you're working on a presentation for some organization you might belong to. Every file you could put the name of the project or the task in front of it, just like you could use the name of a year or a month in front of it, or a location. Maybe files that you wanted to keep track of from a trip you took to Michigan or to Florida or to Spain. You could put the name of the file there, or a place you worked or something like that. You can also put numbers. So you can just put number 1 in front of the file name because that's your most important file, or start numbering 2, 3, 4, or use something just as basic as the date, the year, the month, and the date in the file name. You've got 256 characters. That's a lot of space. That's 1 or 2 characters is about this much space, but 256 gives you a lot of room to name that file whatever you want to name it.
It just has to be exactly the same, exact. Like you can't um transcribe one of the letters. Like if you write for project PROECT, it wouldn't find it. It has to be exact, correct?
Well, it has to be exact, but your computer is pretty smart. So let's say you had a project name, and let me try to type something like project. Let me misspell this, like that. And my project was a document, for example. Well, and then I have it spelled correctly. Well, what will happen is your computer, as you start to type in PRO, it'll start looking for file names that begin with PRO. Okay, even if you have a typo. But if you misspelled it and used a J, for example, instead of a P at the beginning, it's going to start looking for files that begin with the letter J instead of files that begin with the letter P. But even if you have a typographical error or just something intentionally wrong, that it'll start searching as soon as you type in one character right away.
Okay, so like the document, so to the left of the decimal, it's doc. I mean to the right. So do you have to type in like project dot document, or
No, you don't. Let me.
it just knows it's a document?
It will, if you wanted to look for documents, you would type in doc, but it'll start finding files with the name first, regardless of what type of file it is.
No, I mean when you first set it up, do you have to type in document?
Oh,
That's what I mean.
usually no. If you create a file in, say, a word processing application, it will save it with the appropriate thing to the right of the dot. Whatever application you use to create the file will put the file type information to the right of the dot automatically.
Okay, thank you.
Sure,
Hey,
sure. So
Bob?
if you use Word, it'll do it. If you use Google, it'll do it. If you use Apple, it'll do it.
Hello, Bob.
Yeah, yeah.
One quick question. Yes.
Sure.
What's the difference between DOC and DOCX?
Boy, you're getting smart on me. Okay. Okay, so DOCX.
That's what you showed us
DOC
before.
and .docx,
Right.
right? Okay, so .doc is the original file type that Microsoft Word created files in. So .doc is a Microsoft file type.
Okay.
They updated Word in about 2015 or so. They started using .docx for all Word files.
Okay.
Microsoft Word will still open .doc files.
Okay.
The latest versions of Microsoft Word create files .docx.
So that's what we should use.
It's going to be created automatically in Word when
Okay.
you save a
Okay.
file in Word,
Okay.
but for you to recognize it, if you're interested, oh, that's a Word file. And
Okay.
remember, your computer will automatically use Word to open up these kinds of files typically.
Okay. Thank you.
So now you know all about the file extensions, okay? File
Yeah.
extensions are, there's a lot of them, because like if you have a picture file, it might be a .jpg, or it might be a .gif, or it might be a .png. And your computer knows what application to use to open up these kinds of files. Okay. So when you take a picture, they're usually saved as a .jpg file, and your computer will use a photo application to open up that kind of file typically. So your computer is doing a lot of this stuff. Say, hey, I recognize that kind of file. It's pretty smart. The idea is that it's supposed to do a lot of stuff for you, so you don't have to think about it, right? But understand how to organize files, it helps to know what the names are made of.
Can you give an example of a long name?
A long name.
Yeah, not all
I'm
250.
going to show you some names I use on my computer, and you'll get an idea, because what helps is to start using names that help you find things. Hey, it's time to take a look. Okay. Right. So that was a good question. Okay. So let's take a look at let me stop sharing for a second, make sure, see everybody. Let's talk about naming. So I don't know if you knew it or not, but you can create, you don't just have to take a simple name. Think about how you name things. You know, think about how you might want to organize things. So let's take a look at Windows first, okay? And then we'll take a look at Mac. Okay, so this is my Windows desktop. And the tool in Windows, I'm going to make my cursor a little brighter with a little spotlight here. There's a little red dot that follows my cursor around. At the bottom of your computer screen is something called the taskbar. Now, on Windows, it usually keeps these icons visible no matter what you're doing. On Macs, they usually disappear, but they're similar functions. These are ways you get to things on your computer. There's always 2 or 3 ways to get something on a computer. One way to get to your file explorer is to find the file folder icon in your taskbar. You could also type in the word file explorer, or you can also click on the start button and go to something called documents. All 3 ways work. Okay, they just want to give you a lot of ways because you might want to get to your files. So if I click on File Explorer, I'm going to make this bigger, okay? There is my File Explorer. It's actually, technically, it's an application that's built into the operating system. So I have files, and the way File Explorer works on Windows is it pops up with quick access right away. And it shows you frequent folders that you use, okay? And this is something that's built into Windows, okay? It helps you find things that you use recently, frequent folders and recent files, okay? So I was looking at my Windows 10 Basics PowerPoint. I was working on a slide presentation. I have some files here that are numbers and saved captures, and I have some other things. Now, this doesn't tell me the type of file it is, but let's take a look at some other things. Now, I have folders on the left, downloads, shows me downloads, shows me pictures, it shows me my desktop, and I can look at specific folders as well. Okay, so these are quick access. Now, there's a tiny little arrow here that gives you the ability to expand or compress the view. It doesn't change anything that's in there, but these little arrows, whenever you see a little tiny arrow in anything on a computer, it means you can get additional information or reduce the amount of information. So I'm going to click on this arrow, and you can see instead of seeing everything spread out on quick access, it's just in one line, but it's there. I just have to click on the arrow to get it to show up again here. And whatever I start to click on the left will appear on the right. There's OneDrive. I use OneDrive a lot. It's just another disk drive on your computer. So I have folders in OneDrive that have information in them. And they have all kinds of documents and information here. So this is an idea of a file name that might be something that can help you. Okay, this is Advanced Watercolor Class Fantasy Proposal. That's the name of a file. Okay, it tells me on the right that it's a Microsoft Word document. I can adjust these columns a little bit to make them bigger or smaller. And so it tells me that it's a Microsoft Word document. It tells me it's a doc file. This was probably newer than the other one. And so I can start to look at these folders in different ways and files in different ways. I have files that are not, this is a file folder called Kari. And so there are folders underneath the Kari folder, and then there are things that are just loose in here as well. Now, one of the best things you can learn to do in File Explorer, and there's very similar tools in Mac at the top of the Mac, I'll show you those, is this function called View. Let me highlight it for you. It's this thing called View. It's small, but the View function gives you the ability to change how you look at your files. I'm going to click on View. There's a whole menu of options here that give you the ability to organize things. I can sort by. This is a sort by icon. Oh, I can sort by name, status, date modified, file type, file size, day it was created, and some applications say authors, and there's things called categories and tags and title, but some of these are just easy to do. So if I just click on type, my folder, my files are all organized by type now. So I have folders at the top. It tells me it's a file folder. And then I have docs, and it'll show me other things down below it as well. So that's sorting. Okay, and I can just use sort by name. So that's why if you give a file a name, and let's say I want to change the name of a file. Okay, let me find a file that I can do. I can change this name. I click on it, and if I right click on it, it should. Let me check it, see if it's doing it. May not be doing it right today. There we go. I can click on rename. Rename's an option. When you right click on a file, it gives you the ability to rename it, and then it lets me highlight the text. And so I can say copy of original, for example, and I can start typing here. And if I have a typo, I want to change it. Okay, so let's do that. I don't have to change the type. I'm just changing the name.
Can you change it and put it in another, can you put it in another file folder?
Yes, you can. Both Windows and Macs give you the ability to drag and move it. So say I wanted to create a new folder. Okay, so up at the top, there's information here that I can look at, that I can click on Home, and I can use one of these buttons at the top here, but it's under Home. I can click on New Folder, and it creates a new folder, and I can say get set up. Let me type it better, okay? Practice folder, okay?
Okay.
Now it's in alphabetical order. So here's the folder. So if I wanted to move this document to my new folder,
Right.
I can just
drag it.
Click on it and drag it up to the folder. There we go.
Cool.
And just drop it in.
That's wonderful.
So if you have files that are outside of a folder and you want to put them in folders, you can go to create new folder. It'll create it right in your list, and then you can drag. And you can select more than one item if you want to by using your shift key or on your computer. Usually that'll do it. If you hold down shift, it'll let you select multiple files.
Okay, yeah.
A folder too. So this is actually, your File Explorer is actually an application that might do it.
Huh.
Okay, so Carol has a question. If you ever want to make a suggestion, I mean, files are a lot of work. I mean, there's so many things you can do, and we're just touching the surface here of what you can do in files. But if you ever want to suggest a class in the feedback comment, or sending an email to help@getsetup.io is a great way to do it. Okay, so we just kind of created this. I'm going to mute everyone here for a second because I think
How did you get status? How did you get status there?
where is status?
Yeah, you've got the name of the folder or file, then the next column
The column
says,
status. Okay. I am using I'm in my OneDrive disk drive. Okay.
uh-huh,
So OneDrive tells you the status of your of two things. It tells you it's available on this device or just online. So if it has a checkbox in it, I can sort by status. I can actually click on the top of any column here and it'll help someone. So when you see the checkbox, that means it's on my computer. And if you hover over the status icon, it'll tell you that usually it'll tell you it's available on the device as well. So a checkbox means it's in the cloud and on my computer, both.
did you get that from View?
It's from View, right? So View can be just the details, right? So I'm looking at the name, the status, the date modified, the type, and the size. That may be too much. Maybe I just want the list. Okay. So a list will list them as well, or I can look at them as tiles like this. And when you use tiles, it'll tell you, okay, this is a Word document. Okay, it'll tell you, and that these are folders. Or you can use small icons, or medium icons, or large icons, or extra large icons. Okay, so the views are something that you can customize anytime you're looking at a setup. I prefer list. It's just my way of doing things, but I just prefer using list, okay?
Thank you.
Bob? Bob?
Yeah, who had a question? Sue?
Yeah, thank you. I know that there's a separate class on it, but just basically speaking, like if I'm saving something, do I have to, is it always going to go to this PC? Do I have to do something different to save it to OneDrive? Like, how do you know whether to save it to the OneDrive or this PC, or does it save it to one automatically? And for OneDrive, you have to do something different.
It usually will save things to this PC, but and using the local disk, okay, the C drive, but it depends on how you have OneDrive set up, I think. I honestly don't know the exact answer to that. So I'm not positive that I can give you a 100% accurate answer. I know when you are working in a Word document, if you are set up with Microsoft's OneDrive, it usually saves it to OneDrive first these days, more and more often. But you can also save it as a copy on your computer, and OneDrive and your local drive will synchronize. I think that's probably something we'll have to put off until the OneDrive class, because I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Microsoft's going to encourage you to use OneDrive. Apple's going to encourage you to use iCloud Drive. Okay, so Teresa, you have your hand up. You have a
Sure.
question?
I want to ask you if because this is like I said, I really don't know much about this. So if someone sends a PDF to my email, does it automatically show up in here, or I have to do something for it to get to here?
Your attachments and emails are saved in your email account. They are not saved as a file on your computer. If you want to save a file that's attached to an email on your computer, usually if you right click on it, and you can save it somewhere on your computer. Okay, but normally it's just still attached to the email.
So right click on the PDF?
Yeah, if you right click on the PDF, 99% of the time that will give you the option to save it. And you can tell your computer where you want it saved.
Okay,
what
thank
folder.
you.
Sure. Otherwise, it's just going to be in your email.
Thank you.
If you download it though, won't it go to your desktop wherever you have it, wherever you specified to go?
If you download it, it will go to your downloads folder.
Is that okay? Right.
Okay. Like you see a lot of things here in my downloads folder.
Yes.
I don't worry about organizing them because
Right. Doesn't matter.
if I at the time if I wanted to save it, I would do it. So sometimes
Right.
see, like here's a file that's a JPEG file. I didn't rename this, so I actually don't even know what's in this. It's a
All right.
picture I downloaded. So if I were smarter and I wanted to know what's in it, I would rename it. Okay,
Right.
and that way I could tell what's in it.
And it puts the latest ones on top in a sense. Really, it doesn't organize them by
Well,
alphabets or anything.
that's normally how it does it, but I can sort them by any column here. I can sort
Right.
them by name, or I can sort them by type,
Okay.
yeah, or by.
Thank you.
But usually, because people want to know when things were downloaded, it does.
Yes, I do. Right. Thank you.
Sure, sure.
So what do you routinely, and the download thing confuses me because yes, I download and then sometimes I forget it's in that folder, and I'm trying to reference it, it's a document or something. So what do people typically do? Like, do you, as soon as you download, you go to your downloads file and name it? Or do you move it to your documents? Or that's confusing to me.
I usually download mine right to my desktop, and then I rename it from my desktop, and I can move it wherever I want to, or just leave it on the desktop. That's how I usually do mine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you
everybody's going to
download
do.
it to your documents? Or
Well,
does it have to be desktop?
It'll download to your download folder typically. But then, where you want to get to it, how you want to get to it, I find it's best not to put it off. It's best to rename it and move it where you want to, so that it's in the right location. So if you wanted this Pexels Diego Madrigal picture to be in a certain location, I would, you can actually right click and you can move it from here, or you can change where you want it located. So I recommend you rename it right away so you know what it is, because tomorrow you might forget what you downloaded. And so then it becomes a chore to go back and rename all your downloads. So it's better to do it quickly and move it into a folder that you want to have it in.
Would you do it for us?
Don't you usually save a download? And when you save it, you give it a name?
Well, generally, when you download anything, it's just going to download the file that is down that it has, and it's going to put it in your download folder on your
But if
computer.
you're going to save it, because it's something important, you're going to give it a name and put it in a folder.
Yeah, it sometimes downloading gives you the option to do that, but most of the
Oh,
time downloads just end up in your download folder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let me show you what a Mac does. It's so the view and the tools here, you can change how you find anything here. But again, the more you use names and dates and other things in your file name, the easier it's going to be to find them when you need to find them. Okay, so let me close this screen and I will show you. I have to show you my whole Mac screen. It's a big monitor, so it's going to be, things are going to look a little smaller, okay? But hopefully we'll get it working okay. Okay, so my Mac desktop, you can see my gallery. Let me move that out of the way here. Okay, so on my Mac, I tend to have pretty clean desktops, but I do have some things that I have here on the desktop. But if I wanted to find the same thing in a Mac that's File Explorer on a Windows PC, I have to move my mouse to the bottom of my screen. And then I get my dock. This is called the dock on a Mac. It's what pops up. And on the left usually is something called Finder. Finder is Mac's file system. And here's all of the files. There's my desktop. I have OneDrive here. And if I wanted to look at these folders in OneDrive, there they are. Okay. And so I can sort them by clicking on a column top. I can see different, folders and different things that I've created, but Macs tend to use icons. Joe, could you take care of muting anybody that we might be picking up some noise from, please? Thank you. Okay, so if I can show items as icons. Okay, they look very similar to a Mac on a Mac, or as a list. I can see the name, the date modified, the size. I can even see, what type of document it is, or I can see it as icons and columns. I can change the view, but they're all basically icons you can use to select them. And I can create a new folder anytime on a Mac, and I have a menu on top for what's called Finder. The menu is really small, apologize for that. But at the top menu here, I have the ability to change things and modify them. So I can file, I have tools for file, new folders, editing, viewing, and so I can show all the things that I do in a Mac as well. Now, Macs have the search icon in the upper right. I'm going to show you where that is. Way in the upper right here, okay, is where the search icon is. So if I wanted to search for a file, it brings up a search box on my screen, and I can say, okay, watercolor, for example, and do a search, and it'll search for everything on my Mac, no matter where it is. If it's in a file, if it's in a system, and it'll give me ideas for where they're located. The same thing happened on a Windows computer. If you're looking at a Windows computer, when you use the search box on the lower portion. So you can search and use your File Explorer tool to basically manage and navigate around on to find things on your computer. But again, organizing them into folders, organizing them by name, and once you have them in that folder, that helps you find them. It's going to be easier for you to find things. Like I try to keep my paper documents down, so when I get something that has a warranty on it, I take I scan it and I save it as in my 2021 scanned documents folder, so I can find things that are for that are receipts, because looking for receipts can be tough after a while. How long was that warranty, and is it still covered? I bought a garden hose that has a lifetime warranty, right? And one of the reasons they give you a lifetime warranty is that who saves the receipt? But now if you can you can scan it and save it in a folder, it becomes much easier to do, right? So now I have a scanned receipt from that garden hose that has the lifetime warranty, so that it's easier to find it when I need to find it. So this is just an introduction.
Yes, we need more.
To help you out with files, but think about the things you can do to name them and use them and make them more flexible, because your computer will help you find them almost any way you want to find them. Okay.
You have such a clean desktop. Where do you hide all those things?
I put everything in folders. I just don't like a cluttered desktop. Part of it's for doing things on Zoom, but also part of it's because I just prefer a clean desktop anyway.
Okay, if
So
you
I
say
just
so.
I just put things in folders, all the time, right? And that's where I tend to keep things.
But my folders are on my desktop.
Well, yeah, and you can move them into off your desktop by putting them in your C drive or your local drive, just by moving them around with the file organization tool. But it just depends on where people like them. Some people don't like having all of them on their desk. I've seen desktops where the entire screen is covered with folder icons.
Welcome
And
to
so
my,
it's just a matter of what you prefer to do. Okay.
My
You can-
kids drive me crazy when they see my desktop. Drive me crazy.
They drive you crazy?
My kids drive me crazy because my desktop's full of stuff.
Oh.
No, I think you drive them crazy.
Well, it's all about, if you can find it, what difference does it make?
yeah, sure,
Right?
desktop.
I mean, it's really more about what's right for you. What's right for you and what's right for them are two different things.
You know what I would love to see from you is just take something that you want to put in a folder and just do it for us so we can watch. Something simple.
Sure. Well, I tried to do that with that advanced, with the watercolor. I just dragged it into a folder.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Oh, that's okay.
yeah, so that's all you
Yeah,
have to do.
okay.
You just
Yeah,
have
you
to
did it.
create the folder and just start dragging things into it. That's all you
Yeah.
have to do.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do.
Awesome.
It's not as complicated as we make it sometimes.
Right.
And you're going to get some links in the email that are going to help you out with some tips that'll take you to both Microsoft and Apple's help sites on help for files, because obviously you're starting from a different point than I am. And I can show you how the basics work on File Explorer and some other things, but you're going to want to learn a little bit more about it. But it's really easy to drag things around to organize them on your computer. Just a matter of what folder do you want to give that a name for, and if you,
Right.
moving things around. And it's not a matter. Don't let other people's criticism affect how you do things. Do it the way that's best for you. Okay. And if it's best for you to have it that way, and you can find everything when you need it, it's great. It works. The technology lets you use it the way you want to use it. Remember, my slogan is that you shouldn't have to work for your technology. It should work for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So just keep that in mind. So you're going to get the notes. You're going to get, if you got some recommendations and other things that you might want to have. We're using so many digital files these days that it's helpful to just get something understanding a few things about it. When you register for classes now and get set up, you can invite friends. I invited a friend and she ended up taking 60 classes in her first month. So sometimes, but they're happy. It was good information. We do have members that host interest groups. There's a technology interest group that's starting up, I saw, suggesting new classes, sharing with organizations. You can request a copy of the recording, and you can get anything, from Get Set Up by sending an email to help@getsetup.io. So did you learn something new today?
A lot.
Oh my gosh, that's great. That's great.
Can I ask one question before we leave?
I'm sorry.
Can I ask one question before we leave? If you have something downloaded on your mobile phone, does it go on your computer automatically?
No.
No.
That's what the best thing I can recommend, Teresa, for those is when you when you save something in a cloud, it will be available to you on the cloud from both devices.
Okay.
And so, but it depends on whether you use, it's like putting $1 in the bank. Did you put it in Bank of America or Wells Fargo or Chase or your credit union? And so if you put it in the Chase Bank and you go to the Wells Fargo branch, well, I know I have $1 in my bank account. Wells Fargo would say, well, no, your account's empty. And say, oh gosh, that's right, I have it in Bank of America. So you got to drive over to that branch to get the money out. Clouds are the same way. So depending on what devices you use, you might use Apple's cloud or Microsoft's cloud or Google's cloud. Just make sure you have one that works across all of your different devices, depending on what they are.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Bob, I've been to about 40 Get setups, and I've got to say, in my opinion, this was by far the best one.
Well, thank you, Neil. Appreciate
Really,
that.
yeah.
And because and so I've been teaching adults for a long time. I'm typing something in here for someone who wanted the email. It's help@getsetup.io. But thank you, Neela, for that feedback. Appreciate it. And glad everybody learned something new today. And it's hey, whatever organization scheme works for you is fine. It's just that there's so many tools that you can take advantage of that are built into your computer. Just want you to be aware that they're out there whenever you want to use them. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Have a great day, everybody. And
Thank
maybe
you. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great class.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.